but he's a genius. He's military. And anyway, she is a disillusioned Christian, so to speak, meaning she got her heart broken. I'm trying to untangle my mess here. She got her heart broken by asking too many philosophical questions at a Christian church, and they didn't like her after that. So she's very philosophical, and I think there's a chance that she could. I have given her Ishopanishad in the past, but I know she'll read. I don't think she read it, but I know she'll read this because she, they're friends. Like you read the book just because it's your friend.
Yeah.
Okay, now are we? Go ahead. Are we recording yet?
Yeah, but don't worry about it because anyway, I pressed record just that I don't forget. But I edit everything anyway, like at the beginning and at the end. So, and if there's some mistake or I don't know, electricity is gone off or I don't know, signal, then we can also adjust. So it's no problem. Yeah. So thank you.
Well, my internet is a come and go affair.
Okay.
Sometimes it's called satellite, and that means that it goes on because I'm actually in the wilderness. I'm actually on 160 acres of land, what I've inherited from my mother and her nice home. And so I left Hawaii, where I lived for many years, because it's a whole lot easier when you don't have a mortgage, So that's why and internet here is, I suppose there's a new Starlink thing, but anyway. So this is my book. You already read it, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Did you get a copy?
Yes.
Did you read it from the PDF or from the book?
From the PDF, because I got it
from the PDF. Okay.
Email. It's very beautiful. Wow.
Okay, now there. That's it.
It's very nice. And I must say that I read it, but then when I got to the end, I was like, "Oh no, it's the end now. I have to wait for the second volume because I'm very curious." Like you left us in a very exciting moment when you're again going to meet Srila Prabhupada. So I'm very
well. The second volume is almost written. It's almost done.
Great.
So I'm working on it right now, and just for the record, I was just recently in touch with one of my godbrothers. You see these notebooks? When I was traveling with these notebooks are 60 years old. Okay, when I was traveling with Prabhupada, I met him right after being a college student. So I was accustomed to take notes on everything. So I kept notes for the whole time I was with him. And then when I was traveling, can you see it? I don't know if you, I sent them home to my mother and she kept them for me all these years.
Wow.
And so I actually have stuff in here. I'm even amazed sometimes, to be honest with you, things that he said, and that's what I'm working from. The first book is really more for new people. It's for those who are seekers, who are looking around them in the world and going, what is going on? And it's to give them, and since I was a yogi type person, there's a lot of yogi type persons now. I don't know about, probably in Switzerland there is, yeah. So what my whole motive was to, like a portal, an entryway. The second book would be more for devotees because it's more like blow by blow, traveling from city to city with Srila Prabhupada, because from the time he landed in December 14th, 1967, for over a year, we were with him every day. We traveled with him. My husband did the massage. I did the cooking. And at that time, there were no books. We didn't have any books. We just had Prabhupada. That seemed to be enough. Even Shamsundar went to England, right? Well, he didn't have any books. We didn't have anything, except we had a few little Back to Godheads. Yeah, we did have those. And Easy Journey to Other Planet,
Mhm.
but very plain, And then, so the year that I was with Prabhupada for book 2 is like, I'm typing, transcribing Nectar of Devotion and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and one of my godbrothers is transcribing Srimad Bhagavatam. So we were working full time on getting books done that year. And then in 1969, it was like a lotus bud hadn't opened yet. And then in 1969, it started to open. And then when of course they went to Europe, and then George Harrison, and the history from there, it just exploded all over the world.
Yeah, but it's very nice because I read the book, just one book of Shyama Sundar Prabhu and of Yamuna Devi and of Mukunda Goswami. Now I read yours. So, I mean, it's very nice because it's like the puzzles, they all fit. Everyone has their own vision of happenings because they were differently engaged. But it's very nice
Yes, they were different.
to have like a full picture and all these details from everything. So I appreciate it.
That's true. Like Siddhanta's work, Siddhanta's, I'm sure you've seen his videos, with the videos of people, Prabhupada's memories. What I've noticed is there's a thread that goes through them all. Even though I might not know that person, they were working on a different part of the planet, but there's that same feeling, that same incredible love that we all experienced. It was divine. It was, how can I say, it was the best time of our lives. Let's see. I did take some notes, and I just dropped them on the floor. So let's see. You want to ask me questions, or do you want me to just talk?
Yeah. I can also start with questions. I also, I mean, I have some more questions than those that I sent you, because I know about this dream. I mean, you very often, I would like to ask you among these all questions about your dreams about Prabhupada, because you always had these wonderful experiences, and also your painting that's at the beginning of the book. So we can talk
Oh, yes.
many things.
The
So,
World Acharya painting.
yes.
It's hanging on my wall over there. I'll send you a photograph. It's hanging. It's about 5 feet tall and 3.5 feet big. So, and actually, it was a Russian devotee who completed it. Because I was traveling, I didn't have time. And one of the Russian genius devotees, he lived in Vrindavan, named Satchidananda, and he completed that painting. He added some things, but it was okay. Artists, they have to have their own touch. So
I'm just
you asked me what.
Yeah, I just wanted to first welcome you. Thank you very much for coming to this interview, and that we can speak about your life with Srila Prabhupada and your new book, Place of Sandalwood and Roses. It's a beautiful title. I really like it. So that's an inspirational portrait of Srila Prabhupada by you, where you describe your journey with him in your life. So we wanted to speak to you about how I mean, I know that many of these things you write in your book and people can read about all those things, but still, for the purpose of this video and for people to get to know you also a little bit and to know more about Srila Prabhupada, I would like to ask, like, if you can say, like, how you came, in short, like, to Krishna consciousness, and when you met Srila Prabhupada, and what was it like to be in his presence? That would be
Okay. That's a big, tall order. You want me to talk for 3 hours or 4? Well, I was very young, and I had been searching. And as you know, I wandered Europe early on in my life. I went to Europe alone and traveled all over. I went to Austria and Germany and Italy and all that. And then I came back, and I was in college, and I was asking the same questions that people have asked for centuries, which is, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? What is my life for? Is it just to get a good, as some of the people say, get a good education, uh, make money, enjoy for 70 years, and then you die? It's like that just wasn't enough. And I was somewhat disillusioned with Christianity. I was raised in a Christian family because the philosophy didn't make sense. The feeling was nice. The feeling of love was there, but then there was a lot of hypocrisy, and unfortunately, uh, the Bible was edited so many times, they lost so much. So I was lost. So basically, it was a time young people were lost. Not just me, many young people were lost at that time, and Prabhupada came at exactly the right moment. It's perfect. It's Krishna timing, the magic came exactly when we needed it. So I was, as I said, going to the University of Texas in Austin, which is a very prestigious university. The president's daughter was going there, and they had a shooting, the first shooting that ever took place. Now they have them every day, but this was the first time this has happened. And I was on my way to class. I actually witnessed this. And after that, we were like, I started meditating. I think past life, I was just tapped into yoga from probably past life. And I kept reading that when the chela is ready, the guru will appear. Meaning, when you really, really want to know, God is in your heart, and He will send someone who will give you the information. So somehow, I don't even think, what's really interesting is sometimes devotees who are so accustomed to books everywhere and temples everywhere, they'll ask questions like, well, did you go to the temple, or how did you meet Prabhupada? I'm like, we had no clue. Prabhupada was not in San Francisco. We were in nearly 2,000 miles away in Texas. And we didn't even know where we were going to go when we drove away. Because there was the draft at that time, and we were considering Canada, Mexico, but somehow our car headed toward San Francisco. And Prabhupada arrived in San Francisco only a month or so after we arrived there. It was like Prabhupada used to say, my Guru Maharaj has sent you all to help me. And that's how I really do see it. It's many of us, Prabhupada's disciples, are quite different from our brothers and sisters. Our perspectives are very different. And a lot of us felt like, well, what planet is this? How did I get here? At 17, I was saying, I didn't ask to be born. What am I doing here? I mean, there's a feeling was there. And although I was a straight A student, and I was never abused, I was treated nicely. I was healthy, pretty, had everything I needed, but we weren't happy. There was something very big missing. And I think we were drop-ins. I call us drop-ins. That I joke that, well, the stork flew over with all these souls they're going to help Prabhupada. And, well, that looks like a good home. We'll put him there. So I had a good family. We were well fed, like Shamsundar says in his book, a bunch of well fed youngsters or something like that. And that is exactly what we were. We didn't have any great, we hadn't suffered any of the traumas that kids are suffering nowadays. In other words, now it's a different era, totally different era. And so we went to San Francisco, and I was meditating every day, and then happened to walk into the first time I heard Hare Krishna mantra was at a big festival they had called A Human Being. And it was like thousands of hippies, but we weren't really hippies. We didn't really relate to the hippie thing because we were students. We were seniors in college. We walked out in the middle of the semester. Now that's kind of strange, but that's kind of what happened. And And then one day I was finishing my meditation and I went to the bookstore because we were always looking for clues. You're looking for an answer. I'm sure you've probably been through this where you're looking for the answers for your own life. And it was like, honestly, there was so much flashy stuff in that bookstore, like colorful things. And I walked over. It was like I was being led to this little card table with these little plain mimeograph they're called Back to Godhead, but they were just one plain mimeograph is something before it's, you probably don't know what it is, but anyway, it's very inexpensive printing that people could do. Very poor quality. And there were these little concentric circles. So I picked one up and started reading it. And one of them sounded like, familiar Buddhism. It sounded like, samsara, the stuff I'd been already reading about. And then the next one I picked up was a description by Hayagriva of Prabhupada. He met him on the street corner in New York in 1966. And the description was astounding. It was like, I saw him walking down the street with pointy-toed white shoes. And that's a phone. What should I do to it?
If you
can edit it out. I won't answer it, but you can edit it out. Okay, I'll just wait till it finishes. It'll ring 4 times and then it'll shut up.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Okay, it died now. Okay. It went on the machine. So I was like reading this, and it described how the description was so beautiful. I think he put it in his Hare Krishna explosion later, how he looked like a genie that had popped out of a lamp with those white plastic shoes they wear in India, and pointy-toed shoes. You've seen those. And a prayer bag on his hands, and his presence invites memories of temple bells. And all I know is I had the doors opened. I saw him. It was like I was standing there and I saw him in my mind's eye. It was because I had been meditating, you can go easily into that. And it was like he was beckoning me, and I'm standing there with tears running down my face in the store. I found him. I found him. I found him at last. I found him. And that was it. I mean, from that moment, when you have those kind of experiences, you never forget them. They're not of this world. And so there was no question. It was like I knew from that moment. And so I took down the address, went over there, and that was it. It was like, it was a done deal. The contract was already signed. In other words, that's how I felt. So then, of course, he had to move forward. We went to his classes and we got initiated, and he married us, and we traveled with him. And that's what the book is about. That it kind of takes off from that point.
I liked how you also said that this book is actually an eternal story of a disciple and a spiritual master. So, I mean, it is, in a way, this relationship. And I also liked how you said that it's like an eternal lila. All this
yes, it is
happenings that you described in the book. So, and everyone, I mean, especially us who never had this opportunity to meet Srila Prabhupada in person, even though, of course, we can associate with him in books. But, people always ask, like, what was it like to be in presence of Srila Prabhupada? So if you can tell us a little bit your experience of it.
It was wonderful. Sat Chit Ananda. It was Sat Chit Ananda. You walk in the room and all of a sudden it's eternity. You don't feel like that there's no past and present. It's just you're there. And then knowledge is coming. Chit is coming. He's speaking. And then it's total bliss. It's wonderful. It's Sat Chit Ananda. That's what it was like to be in a room with Srila Prabhupada. exactly. And that is our natural feature. That's what everyone longs for. That's who we really are inside, is we are eternally, we're eternal spirit souls. We long for knowledge, and Krishna has all knowledge. And and we want bliss. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants happiness, but we're repeatedly frustrated in this world. And so, I mean, that first meeting, when we actually, Gorsinder and I went to meet with him the first time, uh, as you know in the book, we were describing all the, Gorsinder especially had a lot of anxieties because of the draft. There was a war going on in Vietnam, and they were drafting the young people, and he was military age. And when you, as long as you stayed in college, you were okay. But he had left college, so he was a target, a sitting duck. And my anxiety was similar. I mean, I had the anxiety for him, but also I felt I had traveled all over the world and hadn't found anything worthwhile. So, and then when Prabhupada said, when he said, "Oh, you're so young. You've traveled so much." Because I looked like I was 12. I could still travel for under 12 on airplanes when I was 20. So I was really young looking. He says, "You're so young and you've traveled so much." And I said, "Yes, but none of it has made me happy." And he got this beautiful smile on his face, and he said, "Ah, yes, that is required. That means you're materially exhausted. You're ready for something better." And I think what happened really as I get older now, because I'm now, in my 70s, I think that Prabhupada would often say, "My Guru Maharaj has sent you all to help me." And I'm understanding, the way I see it is, there were souls who were going to help him, and we were dropped into these homes, and some of us were male and some of us were female.
Mhm.
And then we joined all together, and we went off on these missions, and he sent us off on a mission to this country, or that mission to that, and that was how he did things. And he so all of this other stuff that has come about so far as some of the ways the women have been treated, none of that existed in my time. So I was at a conference or online thing the other day, and they were talking about the feminism in ISKCON. I don't know what they're talking about, to be honest with you, because I come from pre-feminism era, for one thing. I don't even know what they're talking about. I know that when I was 20, I was extremely shy. In fact, Prabhupada, if I wanted to ask a question, I'd write it on a little piece of paper, because I was very shy. A lot of young girls are very shy. But he pushed us. He literally pushed us to learn to speak, to learn to lead kirtans, and to do everything. He pushed us because he wanted the movement spread. And it was only much later that all of these erroneous ideas have come about, like medieval Islamic India or something. And I was just, I can't relate to it, and I don't know what to say about it, because I don't know. Like I told you, I'm at a disadvantage. I have a blank spot. I haven't lived through that stuff, but I hear from all of these other ladies, and sometimes I'm horrified, to be honest with you. It's some of the things that took place, with my god sisters, and I don't think, I think it's better, much better now than it was. I think, but I don't really know, because I'm not around. I don't really know. I don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah, but I think it's good that we have these interviews and that we can speak with you and we can speak with your god sisters, because then they can share their experiences and you can share now your experience, especially like what was the mood of Srila Prabhupada and how how he treated his daughters in a way. So
Yes.
it's very important. And yeah, we can talk about that. Today is better, definitely. I mean, ISKCON has history of not treating the ladies very nicely, but as I was also speaking to you about these things, that it also depends on the country in which you live. It depends on the maturity
Yes.
of the person in Krishna consciousness. So, but we still deal with these things, and yeah, when it's very easy to use Prabhupada, Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said that, and then you can make argument.
Yeah.
So that's why we need the example of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, and also that they speak about what they encountered. And you said you have your notes. Also, it's like you were following everything that Srila Prabhupada was doing, and recording this, and you put this in the book. So we're very grateful for that part. And it's, yeah, it helps, this example. And also, like you mentioned when we were speaking, that Srila Prabhupada also wanted to point Yamuna Devi Dasi and you to be like how to say, a balance in the managerial positions of the GBC, to take care of the women and children and so on. So all of this was in a way normal, like that all of his disciples are included in the service. And as you said, he educated everyone for preaching, that everyone can preach and spread.
That's what he did. And and actually, I saw the list because I was his secretary. I saw the list of the original GBC. So definitely had Yamuna's name down and mine. But at that time, we didn't know what a GBC was from an alligator. We didn't know what it was. So it wasn't like we wanted that. And Yamuna specifically told him that she really didn't want to do that. And we couldn't have cared if he had told us to do it, we would have done it. But as you know, some of the young men objected, or one particular young man, Tamal, objected. And so it didn't happen. But now what we see is that young girls are very shy generally, and children are even more shy. And so they won't talk about a problem to a male authority figure. In fact, my godbrother Rupanuga, he was the original GBC man for many, many years. And all of the years, I think 30 years, he I think till the 80s, he was on the GBC. Not one woman ever came forward and complained to him about anything. And there was horrendous abuse going on, and he didn't know anything about it. And so this is why, in Prabhupada's wisdom, because you have to understand, we were just kids. We were only in our 20s and 30s. We didn't have experience of a lot of things, but he could see the future. And in that light, we have to pay attention to the things that rather than rewriting his teachings and rewriting how he wanted to have his movement, we should just do it his way. I mean, why not? It's his movement. Go start your own movement if you want to do something different. That's kind of how I see it. But he could foresee the problems. I mean, many times in my own personal life, I could see his mystical, that he could see the future many times. And that's very impressive. And it does say that in Bhagavatam, that the pure devotee is Trikaligya. And one of the things that I was talking with a lady, what was her name? Radha Dasi in South Africa. Very nice lady, very nice girl. And she pointed out something very significant to me that I didn't know. I was really happy to find it out because she's Indian. And she said their Shastriji explained to them that founder Acharya has a very deep significance. To me, it was the word, it means like founder. But what she was saying was that founder Acharya means that it's like Ramanuja is the founder Acharya of that sampradaya, right? Mm-hmm. Or Nimbarka is the founder Acharya. It's a very, very, it means the root guru. So he is the Acharya. There can be, and there will be in the future, many gurus, just like there are many gurus in the Sri Sampradaya. family gurus, village gurus. The gurus, the royalty always had gurus. Royalty, kings and queens had their family priest, family guru. And so, but the founder Acharya is on a different level. And I think that's something that a lot of people, due to our ignorance in the West, haven't understood, or are just now starting to understand. Maybe I should put it that way.
I mean, you also, we can talk about now, because you mentioned it, that, I mean, when you talk about Srila Prabhupada being a founder, Acharya, that also speaks about putting Srila Prabhupada in the center, which I know that devotees are emphasizing today. So in that sense, I mean, you also had various dreams of Prabhupada that you shared with other devotees. And one of those dreams was this picture that is at the beginning of your book, where Srila Prabhupada is sitting on earth and there are a lot of people. So maybe, I mean, it talks about that, and you saw it as your vision. If you can say something about that picture, we can post it also on our webpage and social media.
Yeah, I can send it to you in a nice PDF so that people can download it if they want. And I can send it, in color. It's, the book is not color because it's, but yes, some years after Prabhupada left, it wasn't very long, I had a dream, and it wasn't an ordinary dream. And, I've always kind of been leaning toward the mystical side, just as a person, and being an artist, they're like that. And so this dream was so clear. It was Prabhupada sitting on the curvature of the Earth planet on a big Vyasasan with a lion on each side. And he was, there were thousands of people, all the people of the world, reaching and pointing toward him. And it was an oval composition. I was told in the dream to paint this painting, take color notes. So I did. I woke up and I took color notes, an oval composition, and the color throughout the whole thing was a beautiful blue color. At that time, I did not know that the color of the spiritual sky was blue. I found that out later, right? But I didn't know it, but that was the color. And Prabhupada was sitting on this Vyasasan, huge Vyasasan. Everybody was pointing to him. And up above in the airplanes, there were devas dropping flowers on him from other planets. And then in the dream, there was like a zoom lens. You know how a camera can go like forward, zoom, it moves at 10 degrees zoom or something like that. And because the Vyasasan was so shining, it was covered with jewels. So you really didn't see this at first. You just saw sparkle, sparkle. But when the zoom lens went forward, it set in jewels on the throne was the word ISKCON, ISKCON. Mm-hmm. And with that came the understanding, the transmission in the dream, that ISKCON is Prabhupada's vahana, his sitting place, like Lord Shiva rides a bull or something, and his sitting place for doing his work in this world, meaning his books. And this is his sitting place. And so everyone is subservient to that image, and he is sitting. And what was really interesting too, in the dream, the particular picture that I saw of him was that picture sitting on the grass at the manor in England. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. There was a little flower. It was always my favorite picture for some reason. But years later, I was actually visiting Gargamuni and Brahmananda in their at their place in Vrindavan, and we were talking about photographs of Prabhupada, and they were saying, "Yeah, you know what he told us was his favorite picture," and then it was that picture, and Gargamuni and Brahmananda were saying, "Yeah, he doesn't even, why? He didn't even have on a garland in that picture, Why is that one such a favorite?" And I said, "I don't know, but it's always been my favorite too. And it is what I saw in the dream." So I've had a lot of confirmation about that, so to speak, dream. And so I eventually did get it. I started painting it, but could never get it off the ground due to traveling so much. And so then I had Satchidananda, who is a Russian artist, who's an excellent portrait artist in Vrindavan. You know, he's this, at that time, Russian guy living in a teeny tiny little apartment, barefoot in Vrindavan, and he painted it. And he added some things I liked, like, you know, the birds and a few other things. But I wish he hadn't put me facing outward. I should have been facing Prabhupada. But anyway.
I was looking for you and I found you because I was reading about it. And then I found you, and I think it's very sweet. So.
Well, the original, it has me, he had me facing outward. And I said, why did you do it that way? He said, because it's your dream. But I was like, but anyway, I had Atma Vidya, who is an incredible graphic designer who did the whole book, actually, and he's in Germany. He took some photographs and turned my head toward Prabhupada, and I was happy with that, you know. So you can't find me so easily in it now.
Okay, I mean, I understand, but it's very beautiful. I really like it. I was fascinated. I mean, when I first read, I think, somewhere about your dream, and I was like, wow. And then I just read first, and then I was looking for the picture, the painting, and then when I found the painting, I was also thinking like, wow, what a dream, and how it's very much true. So it's very nice.
Well, did you find the picture online, or did you find the picture in the PDF file that I sent?
I think
because it's only black. It's black and white there, isn't it?
On your web page, I found your picture.
Oh, my web page. Okay. Yeah, then it would be the.
But I read it.
Yeah, that.
Not now.
Oh, and the HareKrishnaHawaii.com. The HareKrishnaHawaii.com.
Maybe.
Right. Okay.
It was very wonderful. Yeah. So, and it was not now, but a few years ago, I read it and I saw the picture for the first time. So it was very nice. So thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I really like the title of your book because now I think that whenever I will smell sandalwood and roses, it will remind me of Srila Prabhupada. Because I mean, this is a detail that I was saying, like how each devotee, they like discover for us something that you perceived in the presence of Prabhupada. So you always, I mean, you can say it better than I, that you like to decorate Prabhupada's rooms, right? And how you came up with this title, if you can say a little bit about that.
Well, that is truly how there's a perceptible fragrance whenever he left a room. And I've heard other devotees say that. But only in the last year, I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it described how Lord Chaitanya wore sandalwood ornaments and sandalwood fragrance, sandalwood on his, he was a Brahmin. He didn't wear gold. He wore, like Krishna wears gold ornaments, right? He wore sandalwood ornaments. And so I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it was like, oh my gosh, no wonder he always had that fragrance, because he's an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya was hanging around. That's what I came to. In other words, we can't even conceive of these great personalities. We're so tiny. And the more we learn, the more tiny we feel, more small, and more how we really can't really grasp the extent of the spiritual world. I mean, sometimes I'm reading Prabhupada's books. Mostly I'm into Chaitanya Charitamrita right now, and I'm like, wow, so amazing, so huge. How was I ever around such a great personality? Sometimes I'm like, must have been a mistake, you know, that I know there's no mistakes. It was just some good fortune. I guess they needed to get it off the ground somehow, because this is the beginning, as you know, of the golden age. Right now, we're going through the very difficult dissolution, the partial dissolution in the world that Prabhupada talked about whenever he was present. I don't know if you've researched this, but there are many statements he made, like very soon civilization will collapse all over the world. Have
Yeah.
you read that?
Yes.
And you don't know how, but he's Trikaligya. And then I was just on a Zoom call the other day in New Zealand, and Mahabodhi was there, who happened to be the devotee who was walking with Prabhupada in Atlanta or near Atlanta. And I had heard this before, but I wasn't there. I wasn't in Atlanta. And he was saying how they were walking, and Prabhupada pointed his cane at the city and said, "You see that city?" Yes, Prabhupada, that's Atlanta. That city won't be there anymore. All the people will have to flee for the looting and the violence and the riots. They'll flee to the hills. And I'm like, oh, yes, Srila Prabhupada, later on in Kali Yuga. No, not later on in Kali Yuga, in your lifetime. And like, people were a little shocked to hear that. And now a lot of people are very shocked at what's going on in the world. But what I saw, that Prabhupada could foresee everything, and he told us exactly what to do perfectly. He was concerned for and the movement will go on. He used to say, he would say this quite often, in the future, people will say this Hare Krishna movement saved the world. And I would think, from what? Looks fine to me. I mean, we didn't have, I guess if you were in Croatia, you could probably, if you were in Yugoslavia, yeah, it was some horrible things took place, I'm not even aware of all of them. But at that time, when we were young, it was, I was born just after World War II. So we have had some years of peace, sort of peace, at least in America. And now things are changing at such an alarming speed from day to day. And Prabhupada told us very clearly what to do. He said, get self-sufficient, get out of the major cities, grow your food, become self-sufficient, and you'll be fine. And that's still a lot of what people are trying to do, but it's not that easy. We still have to preach. And right now we're doing it with these machines that we have, these computers.
Yeah, that's definitely true, that Srila Prabhupada had a vision, and he said many things, and many devotees are speaking about this. So, and as you said, like, he was a pure devotee, he knew the past, present, and future. So, and
yes,
he had this mystical thing definitely about him. So thank you for sharing all those things. I just wanted to touch upon like some things at the beginning of your devotional life, when you were traveling with Srila Prabhupada. He also, like, I think in 1969, that you came to Hawaii, right? And there you
Hawaii, yeah.
And then with your husband, there you established a temple. So that was your mission for Srila Prabhupada. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, Srila Prabhupada, as I said, he sent couples to different cities. He sent Nandarani and Dayananda to Los Angeles. I think he went to Florida also. Anyway, he sent different couples, and he wanted us to open up a temple. And I was always cold. I was very frail and always cold. And so we wanted us to open up. He wanted my husband to take me to a climate that was warm. So he gave him a choice of Florida or Hawaii. And Govinda chose Hawaii because it's on the way to Japan, and he had lived in Japan as a child. So because he was military. And so he pretty much decided the Hawaii was the place. I did not want to leave Srila Prabhupada. I was heartbroken. I really didn't want, but we had to go out and preach. And so he used to tease us. He used to say, we were like a family and I pushed you out of the nest. That's what he used to say. Prabhupada used to say to us. And so we went to Hawaii, and I went in January of '69. Govinda was there for a couple of months getting a place, because in those days nobody had. I mean, we didn't have any money. It's not like we went. There was no central organization and where, oh, here's $1,000, go do this. It wasn't like that at all. I had some money. My father was sending me. He had offered me a new car because he bought all the kids a car, and so I just asked for the monthly payment, you know. And so we only had like maybe $300. So he went to Hawaii and he got a job working as a clerk in a hotel. And then the night before I arrived, he found a house. And then Prabhupada came and stayed with us in that house. It was around 7 acres of land by the ocean. And it was a very sweet month. We were there he was there for a month with us. And it was so strange because I've noticed this now just recently, reading all the Prabhupada memoirs.
Mhm.
It was like wherever he went, it was like all of a sudden magic dust went. I mean, all of a sudden people came, money came, everything came just right after he arrived. I mean, for the first month that I was there, I went and got a job as a secretary, executive secretary, because I had fast typing speed and shorthand and all that. And we were moving forward. We were trying to save money to get a center. But when he came, everything just completely opened up. And within a few months, we moved into town, bought a 3-story house near the university. As kids, we were kids, 22-year-olds. And that doesn't happen in the real world. It just does not happen that you're able to buy a 3-story house near the university with no credit, with nothing, not even a job. It doesn't happen. I was a realtor. It doesn't happen. I don't know how it happened. It's like mystical things, like with George Harrison and Shyam Sundar. And I'm sure if you do a little investigation, you'll find every place is like that. That's why wherever he traveled, it was like Yamuna used to say, it was like Krishna magic. And it was Krishna magic. But Prabhupada seemed to have the bag of it, and he would sprinkle it wherever he would go. And things would just mushroom beautifully. Anyway, that's my perception of it.
It's very nice. And you know, in Switzerland here, we had a seminar on glories of Tulsi Devi, and we mentioned you there because you were the one who planted the first Tulsis for ISKCON according to the desire of Prabhupada. And that was really, really sweet. So we mentioned you in that sense. And were you like, I wanted to ask you, like, how did you just find the seeds and then you planted Tulasi, or was it a search for Tulasi, or did you know that you would be successful? Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? I mean,
well, when I was traveling with Prabhupada, sometimes he would leave his beads. They would be, I'd make the bed, but they would be on the bed, and I would have to put them back in the bead bag and set them on his desk. And they were so beautiful. They were this glossy golden wood. And we had these horrible big red beads. I don't know if you know, you could knock somebody out with them. They were so heavy. And because that's all we had at that time. And so I had this desire for some Tulsi beads. I really was fascinated by the story about Tulsi and Haridas Thakur. I did the drawing early on. And so I really wanted some Tulsi beads. In fact, one time we were in New York, and New York had a couple of Indian stores. Indians hadn't really flocked over yet. It was still early. They didn't really come. The immigration laws changed in the early 70s, and that's whenever the Indians really started coming. Before that, there were no Indian stores. But there was one little import shop somehow, and the man told us he had Tulsi beads. So we went halfway across New York City to get to that little store. And the beads he gave us weren't Tulsi, but he told us they were. Maybe he thought they were. So we brought them back to Prabhupada. We've got Tulsi beads. And he looked at him and he held them up. It says, no, they were rosewood, is what they were. Hard, brown, little, anyway, they weren't Tulsi. So I had that desire and Krishna fulfilled it. I used to go to the university at night. There was an East-West center after we bought the house. There was an East-West center a short walk away at the university that had an incredible library with stacks. It means you could go in there and touch them and feel them and look at them and pick out what you want. And my husband, Gorsinder, was a scholar, and he was, I would bring books home for him, you know, different books, like Srila Bhaktivinoda's books were there, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's. There were books in all languages from India and China, other countries, East, West, meaning all of Asia. Anyway, long story short, one night I found a book called Firminger's Gardening in India. It was in English.
Wow.
And guess what? It had Firminger's Gardening in India was a British guy who wrote a book about all the plants in India. And there was Tulsi. And for the first time we found out, oh, it's Osamum sanctum. There's Osamum basilicum, which is the species name for basil, and Osamum sanctum is Tulsi. So once I found out what it was, then I could try to find how to get it, you know. And of course, you couldn't get it in America at that time. But there was an Indian lady in town who had an import shop. She was a British lady. I asked her, she would go every year to India, I asked her to bring me some seeds for Tulsi, from basil, you know. And so she brought me some, but they didn't grow. For a long time, we were offering obeisances to a blade of grass, but I guess Krishna knew that we were, I mean, a weed, you know, we planted them and that's what came up. And so Krishna saw that we were sincere. And so then the next year she brought some seeds and those grew. That was the beginning. They grew, little heart-shaped seedlings, you know, and it was very exciting for us, you know. And Prabhupada, I wrote him, and then soon after that, we went to Los Angeles to see him. And just as I was getting on the plane, one of the brahmacharis, you can't take ag stuff from Hawaii to LA, right? It's illegal. Anyway, they're afraid of some bugs or something like that. Some bugs, interchanging bugs between states. Just as I was getting on the plane, he put this bag on my shoulder. And I looked inside and there were 2 70-inch Tulsi plants in it, wow, which I took to Prabhupada. I brought them to Prabhupada and he was so happy. I never saw him so happy. It was, I didn't really know the significance. We didn't really have that much deity worship yet. We didn't really know the significance, but he knew the significance. And that's how it happened. And then Hawaii, you know, everything grows easily in Hawaii. It's very lush soil, nice temperature. Heavenly. He used to love Hawaii. He used to say that, it's left over from a previous yuga. He would say, if there's any happiness on the earth planet, it's in Hawaii. And he spent a lot of time there. He stayed with us, really. I mean, he came every year to Hawaii, or many times he came, and he did most of Chaitanya Charitamrita in Hawaii. Very comfortable, like Bengal and not the hot season. Bengal in the comfortable season, you know. Anyway, that's what happened. I think we really didn't know that much about, I didn't know that much about Tulsi. I just had this burning desire.
So, I mean, it's a beautiful experience that you had, and thank you for sharing. I mean, I always wanted to know, like, how you did it, and it was Krishna in your heart.
I didn't. That's just it. I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. All you have to be is realize that you're not the doer, and Krishna can act through you. But our big problem in life, especially, is that we start thinking we are the doer, but we're really not the doer. Meaning in the Gita, you know. So So actually, we just have to let Krishna be instruments, work through us, you know. And what's so funny is years later, I was traveling with Prabhupada in America. I was at the Mississippi farm,
Mhm.
and he was giving a lecture, and he started talking about Tulsi and how he was saying, and Govinda dasi grew the Tulsi. I sent her the seeds. And for a second, I went, wait a minute, I got this. And then I went, ah. He sent me the seeds, dummy, through the Indian lady. I sent her the seeds, right? You get it? So these are the kind of mystical experiences that we had with Srila Prabhupada. He was, and he even told me directly that the spiritual master, because he's in touch with Krishna at all times. I'm talking about the Acharya, the pure devotee, the one that came from Krishna Loka, right? He is in touch with Krishna because that relationship is fully established. And he can know whatever Krishna tells him, what is going on in the hearts of each of his disciples. And all of us Prabhupada disciples have had that experience where we're like, what am I going to do about this? And then we just feel like Krishna and Prabhupada are guiding us from within our heart. We all have that. I'm sure you've had that experience too. It's a common one. That's why we're devotees, right?
Yeah, that's true. And also, I remember from what I read about your experiences that what you now said about that we are not the doer, that we are the instruments, you also explained that in reference to your paintings and how you painted the pictures that, I mean, Srila Prabhupada instructed how to paint the pictures and everything, but still, I was reading that this painting of Krishna Balaram that you did, but you never were in Vrindavan, but it's just the
Yeah.
inspiration from the heart. And so it was very nice.
I know that picture is still used in temples all over the world, you know, as a backdrop. And I was just seeing it the other day on I think it was something in Vrindavan, and I'm like, oh, there's Prabhupada, the cowherd boy. You know, that was how I saw it. Whether it's true or not,
Yeah.
but that's how. And I was just talking. It's interesting because this morning I was talking to a god sister that I haven't talked to in a long time, named Srimati, who was in Seattle at that time that we were there. We were discussing. I'm asking for some of her experiences at that time. It was the very beginning of the Sankirtan party, and she was reminding me of some things, and I was remembering uh, how amazing it was that at that time everybody just kind of considered Prabhupada as a cowherd boy, because we had a god sister named Harsharani, and Harsharani was friends with Srimati, so that's how we got started talking. And Harsharani lived with me the month she lived with us in Seattle for a month with Prabhupada. And her poem, I mentioned about her poem. Well, actually, that's in book 2. I'm getting mixed up now. But anyway, book 2 has the details about the poem. But everyone had pretty much the feeling that Prabhupada was a cowherd boy. And he would sometimes joke and laugh, just like, and Himavati used to make cowboy shirts for him. And our idea of cowboy shirts, of course, with a little pointy, you know, with little snaps and things like. And I used to iron his cowboy shirts. It was like, for us, it was just normal. Now I don't know if that so many people know about that. I mean, I don't know how significant it is. It's just significant to us.
Thank you for sharing that. And can you tell us, I have still a few more questions. Hope it's not too late for you. I mean, it's not too long, this conversation.
Well, you're the one you're late. I'm for me, it's only I don't know, maybe 2:00 or something.
Okay.
You're the one that is late
I
in
mean,
Swiss.
about your experience and about Srila Prabhupada, so I'm happy. I wanted to ask, like, if you can say, what is your favorite experience with Srila Prabhupada? Maybe you already mentioned it, but maybe you didn't. Like something that's really stuck with you.
Favorite? I love to hear him sing.
So nice.
I still love to hear him sing. I'm drawn into when he does kirtan, all other sounds fade away and it goes into my ears and into my heart and into it. It's like instant meditation. That's my favorite. But then I love everything about him. But and I love his books. But I think sound is the most important thing. Sabda Brahma. You know, we everything is from sound, and that probably is what attracted me in the very beginning more than anything. But like I said, from the moment that I had that mystical experience, and I didn't even know what it was, I've learned since then it's called a spurti. It's where you have a darshan, but I didn't know that. And it's so powerful that it's the most real thing that ever happens to you. You never forget it, you know, nothing, you never forget it. And so I think most devotees have something similar like that, whether it's a spurti or whether they're just like some devotees, the minute they see Prabhupada, they just fall down on the ground and tears are coming. I'm sure you've heard many, like in Siddhanta's, that's why I like his work so much, because it gives an overview of different facets of the diamond. Prabhupada being like a diamond, and there are different facets that each one of us relates a little bit differently to. Maybe for somebody else, there's something, the philosophy, the intricate philosophy is more important. It wasn't as important to me. It was the sound going into my heart that was important. And it still is. So
thank you for sharing. And also we wanted to ask you, like, what is the quality of Srila Prabhupada that was the most favorite for you, like in his personality?
his kindness, his loving kindness, very kind, very, very kind, very loving. He fulfilled the father image figure for me, because I was separated from my father at an early age. So for me, and it's funny too, Shrutikirti also, who was with Prabhupada for several years, Kusha has been my best friend for 60 years or something. And she was married to him for many years. Both of us didn't grow up with a father, and so he fulfilled that father. But I think all of us felt that even if you had a father, he was our father, he was our guru, he was our teacher, he was everything. Everything rolled into one. But for me, perhaps, and then also I'm going through my notebooks recently. I'm things that I've forgotten. I'm working on book 2. I've come across some information that makes me remember why I took certain directions and why I did certain things that are written down, that now you're already going the direction and you already have the mood, but where did it come from? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's Chitananda, he wrote something about like, every moment was most special. There was no one moment, but I guess it's different for different people.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And also, I mean, we would like to also know, like, do you think how actually your relationship evolved, like when Srila Prabhupada, when he left this planet physically, like how did your relationship evolve until now, and this moment and this connection that you had with him?
You mean after he left the planet?
Yes.
With a lot of pain and separation. A great deal of pain and separation. We all still cry sometimes.
Yeah.
I think I can speak for God brothers and God sisters. We all still cry sometimes. We all still miss him. We all still you know, it's not, it doesn't go away. I'm just going to change this a little bit here. There, that's better, isn't it?
Yes.
I can see you better too. It's painful because a lot of things happened after he left that were not very good, which don't know how much you know about, but not much point in my talking about them. They're all over the internet. You can find out real easily. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that really need to be improved, cleaned up. Especially the child abuse thing is a very horrendous thing. And as an attorney, I would think you have your work cut out for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I totally agree that these things should be dealt with. As a society deals with it like legally, and there are people who can help you in the sense of being psychologists, and there are many devotees actually who are attorneys and psychologists and doctors, so it's not like that you have to deal with people who don't understand the spiritual aspect of a person. So I hope that in the future everything will change regarding that, and that the history definitely won't repeat itself. So
it won't change unless we change it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's been going on a long time, and I think people are really fed up at this point. They really, really want to see that the children are protected. Yeah. Do you have children yet? How many?
No,
no, but no children yet. Yeah. Not yet. Okay. So, well, I don't have children either. So it wasn't, I had to scoot up my chair. You know, these chairs, they wiggle backwards. I don't have children, but I always had a great concern for the young people. And I did a number of coloring books, 5 coloring books. And to me, it's funny because a lot of people look at their life and what was the most important thing to you. And my coloring books were the most important thing to me because I saw so many children happy coloring the pictures. And my desire was that when I was little, I loved coloring books. I loved paintings. I loved pictures of, I didn't have Krishna, but I liked that sort of thing. And so I wanted to make some books that would be so beautiful. Krishna would be so beautiful, they would be searching for that beauty their whole life. And to me, the children's, sometimes youngsters who grew up at that time, thank me because that was all they had. They didn't have anything else. And that was their solace. And many of them suffered in a very unpleasant environment. And it gave them some solace. So to me, that's like, if you asked me what was important, it would be the coloring books. If you ask somebody else, it may be something else. But for me, that those children were growing up having something connection with Krishna in spite of whatever situation they were in was very important. There's a strange sound. What is that strange? Do you hear that sound?
Yes, a little bit like I don't know how to say it in English. Like
a chirp.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that chirp? I've never heard that. Is that my headphones going out or something? Is that what happens? They make a little squeaking sound.
Maybe your microphone. Maybe your microphone. I mean, I don't hear it.
Well, I don't have it. It's all built in. It's a iPad.
Mm-hmm. I don't hear it so loud. I don't know how loudly you hear it, but for me.
Okay, well then I don't know. You're recording this. That's why I asked. It's not annoying. I mean, it's just something new. We haven't heard that one.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's there.
I bet you anything it's my headphones. Maybe it's my headphones.
Okay. I'm not also technically I'm not an expert, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, but it's not so loud that it can disturb the talk that we are having. So yeah.
So what other questions did you have?
Yes, the other question that I have is like, this was the question like that we are now in the 21st century, and sometimes, you know, people say, oh, the world has changed so much from the 60s, and And they think sometimes also like, can people relate to, for instance, Prabhupada's books? That's one question. And the other is that did Srila Prabhupada leave some universal points that can be always applied? Like, because anyway, you were saying how this is the start of the golden age, and we all know that the golden age should last for 10,000 years. So in that sense, like some people say like that, oh, maybe some things are not connected so much to today's modern life. I mean, I personally don't think so, but what do you think?
Right. Well, I'm sure you know my opinion on that already. There's probably not anybody that doesn't. I don't think the book should be changed. If you want to write your own book, or you want to write your realizations of what you've learned, but I don't think the books themselves should be changed any more than we should go and rewrite Shakespeare. Do we really have a right to rewrite? If we are going to rewrite Shakespeare, then we have to say that we are rewriting Shakespeare. We are editing it, we are changing it, and we have to put our name on the cover of the book. And we have to also, no, these are editorial rules. These are how things are done in all the major universities of the world. And that hasn't been done. And we have to simply, it can be done if you feel that this is some material may not be understandable, then you can write a explanation. I mean, in a way, you might say that my book is a little bit like that. I'm writing something now in this, the 2000 whatever, and so many years later. But my name is on the cover. I'm not saying Prabhupada wrote that book. I don't have Prabhupada's name on the cover of my book. You see, and that makes a big difference. It's deceptive. Otherwise, it's deceptive if you let people think that Prabhupada wrote something, but he never even saw it. And it just isn't done. It isn't done in scholarly circles. It is not done in spiritual circles also. It's not accepted in any sampradaya, because I have gone to the sampradayas and spoken to leaders in Gaudiya, leaders in Sri Sampradaya. It's not done. There's a principle which Prabhupada himself says, he talks about, it's called Arsha Prayog, which means that whatever the saint has said, it's set in concrete. You don't change it. You leave it as it is. If you want to comment on it, if you want to say, well, okay, there's a big discussion about this word rape right now. I'm sure you know about that one. And you say, well, probably this meant seductive, probably this meant that, whatever. People have their different renditions. Then you say that, and you put your name on it and you say, this is my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
But no, you don't change the original writings. The problem with changing even one or two things, there were two things that Prabhupada gave classes on his Gita for, I think, 7 years. I forget how many, 250 lectures or something like that. And he never said anything should be changed except for two things. There was a planet of the trees, should have been the peat trees, and cattle raising should have been cow grazing or something. But he didn't talk about any other changes. So if you make 5,000 changes, which there are over 5,000 changes, aren't you rewriting the book? Because there's a certain rule in editorial law, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, there are. It's like law, basically, that when a certain percentage of change is done to a manuscript, it becomes a new edition. So then you're required to put edition number 2 or 3 or 4. And you're required to put who edited it, whose name, whose opinion was it. And you put that on there, and there's no problem. But the fact that it hasn't been done is a big problem. It's creating a big problem.
I agree. And also, like, I mean, that's also, I mean, this is just my opinion. That anyway, I think all the people can understand these books, and if they cannot understand, there's always someone who can explain. So, and there are so many books now from other devotees who are giving.
Right. Yeah, there's so many books written by disciples, so many interviews. There's Siddhanta's books. I mean, they're books and videos. There's so much available that it does not warrant changing the original books. And the danger is, and it's a big danger. Look at what happened to the biblical texts.
Yes.
That I mean, one little change every year in 100 years, you are going to have a different product. One little change, and that's what has happened to. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "I gave this information to the sun god already, but it got lost in time." That's how things get lost in time. That's how Christianity got destroyed. Well, like one of the things that was very impressive about Shyam Sundar's book is the many, he would present different philosophers. And I was actually present in the room a lot of times when Prabhupada would talk about these different philosophers, Kant, Sartre, all the different ones, European philosophers. It was very interesting, to hear him speak. But when he really got upset, the first time he got really upset was about the changing of the biblical text, biblical teachings. One man was able to change, because he was influential in the Catholic Church. He was able to eradicate the idea that animals have souls, which has led to zillions of slaughterhouses, wars, and suffering, and that there's no such thing as reincarnation, right? These were both originally, and I mean, historically, because I have studied this a little bit, not as much as some people, but a little bit. Historically, these concepts were there. And Prabhupada also said that too. He has said that original teachings of Christ, there's something called Essene Gospel of Jesus the Christ. He picked up the book. There was a young man that had joined our temple when he was staying. Prabhupada was staying with us in Hawaii. Prabhupada, I remember watching him. He picked up the book and took it to his room and read it. It was about the original Christianity. And so that is the danger. The point is that there's a huge danger that the original thing can be lost if you make changes that are secret. They're stealthily done. They're not openly done with the name. So if you put your name on it and you say, these are the changes that I've made these footnotes, there's not a problem.
Yes, I agree with you.
But that's a very controversial issue. You might want to edit that out.
I mean, you can say it. It's your opinion about it. Everyone else has another opinion, so I think it's quite legitimate. You didn't say anything wrong. I mean, so I also, I mean, I personally also don't like when something is changed for no reason, but I'm not going to go into that because there are other people who are experts, but also my heart was not very pleased when I saw that. And I also know that, I mean, a lot of devotees today, senior ones, are worried about the legacy of Srila Prabhupada. And I think that
we're very worried.
Yeah, and what we can do is like speak about it, like you said it now, that like you said your concerns, and also try to preserve what we hold dear.
Everything that we're doing now is for preserving. We're all getting old. I mean, somebody was joking the other day that Facebook has become the obituary page because there's like there's disciples leaving every week, but the thing is that everything that we are doing at this point is for the future. It's for the kids. That's how I've been thinking for years, but now I'm really thinking that way because I know I don't have many more years on this planet, and I'm fine with that. But I want to leave everything that I can, and that's really my motive in writing these memoirs, these books, is to leave something for And I'm writing them in a really simple format because kids nowadays don't read so much, at least in America. I don't know about Europe, maybe Europe is better, but I don't know. I just know that if it's easy to read, people will read it. And so I try to keep it very simple. And the important thing, I think, for the memoirs is that there's a feeling of love, and that feeling of love is invoked. That's what matters.
Totally, like the mood and everything. So yeah, it's very nice. So actually, that was like one of the questions, like, what do you want the readers to take away from your book? So I guess I would say this mood that you now described.
Yes, that mood. Yeah, I had a couple of people read the manuscript before it was fully edited and stuff, and I had a very good editor at the time. But I had a few years ago. It took me many years to get it done, and I had one young girl. She was about 19 or 20, and she was an intellectual. Her father was a psychologist or something, so she tended toward the non-emotional type. And her response was, "I didn't want it to end. I felt so much love for Prabhupada that I felt love for him, and it opened up a whole feeling of a personal relationship." I said, "Yeah, that's what I want to. That's what I'm shooting for. Really, that is what will last. Because what's the most lasting thing in this world is love. Love goes even from you know I mean, just think, people lose their parents if they really love their parents, and they still think of their parents 50 years later, or you know what I'm saying? So that's what really matters, is the feeling that a person gets when they read. There needs to also be intellectual treatises, but I'm not qualified to do that. It's not my thing. But there are other people who are very qualified and to write chronological, blow by blow histories. There have been some excellent things written. I think Yogeshwar's book is extraordinary, well done. But being an artist, I like Shamsunder's books very much. I think that and the Lilamrita is very good for chronology. And a lot of what was really good is that a lot of the things were recorded back then. A lot of tapes were made right after Prabhupada left, which means that a lot of material that would have been forgotten was preserved. When I was living in I guess it was 1978 or 79, I was living in Laguna Beach, and we had like a 2-day meeting with Shamsunder, Mukunda, Harsharani, Kartikeya. There were a couple of more people. They all came to my house, and we sat around and recorded memories, and that was good because so much you forget so much,
Yeah.
So,
and that's how the future generations can also know. I mean, about your lives, about Srila Prabhupada, and that feeling, the mood that you want
that
to.
the feeling has to come through.
Yeah,
That's what really is important.
Yeah, bhakti is about feeling. So I also think it's very important. So thank you. So when can we expect the second volume of of the series?
Well, when I finish it, I need to finish it. I'm struggling with the tech part right now. I've got most of it written, but I need I had someone to help me before, but she's not able to help me now. She did a really good job, but one of my god sisters, but she has some health problems now, and so I don't think she'll be able to help me. And I'm working with a couple of other people, but that's the part that's hard, is the tech part.
I hope.
Getting you can understand.
Yes, I hope all will go well, and
Well, a lot of you guys grew up with computers, but I never had any attraction to them. And the only reason I started studying how to do it was because I knew I had these books to write. And they're still not my favorite part of life, but essential, you might say. They're very essential. Let me see. Do you have any other questions? Let's see if I've got
The last one.
because I wrote some things down.
Oh yeah, sure.
Wow, most of these things I've covered.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you whether you would have some message for the future generation, like how to establish their relationship with Srila Prabhupada.
Oh, that was the last question. Connect with Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. I wrote something earlier. I read about how founder Acharya and the Sanskritist, the Shastriji, said it was important, and that's an important thing. He is actually the Acharya for the next 10,000 years, and he himself said that. He said these are the law books for the next. We all know this. I assume you know this, and so there may be many teachers, as I said, but if anyone, what we have to remember is that no one of us would know anything about Krishna if it weren't for Srila Prabhupada. And that applies even to India, because in India, many of the Indian people, I've had a lot of association with them, even from good, pious devotee families. Like one of them was telling me, who's a devotee from, most of them are techies, you know, they're here on working with computer skills. And he was saying that in India, we know about Krishna, but we're supposed to just wait till the end of your life to deal with that. In other words, you don't focus your whole life on becoming a devotee. You just do that at the very end of your life. Right now, you just do the other stuff, the family stuff and the career and all that. And so what Prabhupada is saying was, no, you don't wait. You don't know how much time you have. You need to do it now. And so he actually, in the West, no one would know anything about Krishna. But even in India, even in the East, no one would know the kind of truth that he brought forward. And because at that time, well, I don't know, I mean, things have changed somewhat since then, but most of India was running after Western concepts, you know, they were after the materialism. But then I've had a lot of them tell me that, oh, I became a devotee after I came to America because we thought things were better. Well, when they got here, they found out that they really missed their culture. They found out that the only oasis were Prabhupada's temples. And so the young people, the younger generation now, they are of Indians as well as Westerners, are looking to their original culture. And I think our job as Prabhupada disciples is we have to leave as much information as we can so that things don't get lost.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Thank you. Our book is definitely contributing to that. So we're very grateful that you wrote it. And
what about the women's issues? Do you feel there's anything that needs to be addressed so far as the women's ministry?
Well, I think that, I mean, when we do these interviews, we do them to set an example for other women in the world, that they can see that Prabhupada's disciples, daughters, they served personally Srila Prabhupada. They established a relationship with a spiritual master. It was a very loving relationship. It was intimate relationship. So that's what actually we want to show. And by showing this example, we hope then other things that are negative won't happen so much, because in spiritual life, everyone is looking for an authority. So I think that this is a authoritative proof of how ladies, Vaishnavis, are treated in the ISKCON movement. So, and you also said like that you were born and lived in an age where things like that didn't happen. You didn't see it. So that's definitely an example and a proof that if it happens, it's not normal. So that, and I think that's very evident. But if you want to say something, I mean, if you want to like emphasize even more, like, because you as a Vaishnavi, as a person in a female body, you can express like, did you ever encountered like obstacles in your devotional service that you couldn't do something because of your gender or something like that?
Well, actually, the way it really works is that there's a complementary factor. That's why Prabhupada set couples, because the woman acts as an inspiration. And I don't understand what they mean by feminism, because it just wasn't around. I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm really at a disadvantage. But what I saw from Prabhupada and in my generation was that we worked together. We were like brothers and sisters. I was like Brahmananda and Gargamuni's sister. There was no weird anything. And we were married. Most of us, he liked for us to be married, and we worked together with our husbands. And that's how Prabhupada actually used to say quite often, behind every great man, there is a woman, either a wife or a mother. And I'm sure you can look this up and you can find it on your database. And so the women were the inspiration. And also, like, I mean, like in London, they would cook the apple pies and take them to Apple Studios, distributing prasadam. You know, the prasadam was in this age a very significant part of preaching. And so working together as couples, a lot was accomplished. I think one of the problems is that some of the young men became eager to be very renounced too quickly. And so they took the sannyas. But then, as we all know, that didn't always work out so well. And often it became sannyas rod, instead of becoming a symbol of renunciation, became a symbol of beating or abuse of not just of women, but of children as well. So this is a big problem that we have to get past. If ISKCON doesn't get past this, and I think we can, I think a lot of things coming to the surface now will enable us to get past this.
I mean,
but people try to be something they're not, and they can't. People try to, and the way I view it, I don't see that Prabhupada is at fault. Some people criticize, which really bothers me, by the way. Oh, he made a mistake. He did this. Why did he do this? Why did he set up such an elitist hierarchy? All these things. The way I see it is that Prabhupada came to a foreign country and he got a band of pirates, and he did the best he could with what he had to work with. People who had no idea of Vedic civilization. And I can remember very clearly in Hawaii one time, Shrutakirti was giving him massage. I was sitting, it was up on the roof of the Hawaii temple, and we got news of another sannyasi leaving or biting the dust, so to speak. And Prabhupada became very pensive. He was thoughtful. And then finally he said, the problem is, for the Western boys and girls, when he said boys, he meant everybody. The Westerners, they go to the other side. And I said, what do you mean, Srila Prabhupada, by the other side? You mean the way we were before we came to Krishna consciousness? And he said, yes. Therefore, most of them will have to take birth in India in order to complete their Krishna consciousness. So we don't have the culture. We don't have the Vedic culture. We don't have the training from birth. Now, I don't know what your country is like. It's probably what Eastern Europe, it's probably much more traditional. But I mean, America, it's not that much tradition. There's not that much culture. It's not a very new country. So that issue is there. And a lot of us will be probably coming back to help make things better. But the movement will definitely go on. It's just that right now, according to what Prabhupada has said, there are some very difficult years ahead. And so we should do our very best to have as many kirtans as possible. That's the only solution for Kali Yuga. It's nice that they're having all the protests. In Europe is full of protests, thousands of people on the streets for whatever. I don't even know what all they're protesting, different things. But the important thing is that we go to those protests and let them hear the holy names. That's how we spread the movement. We went to Jimi Hendrix concerts. I didn't even know who the guy was. We went to Led Zeppelin concerts. We went any place there was a crowd of people. We were there with our bells and our kartals and our drums, and we were chanting. And that is how the movement was spread. And that should be, I think one of the biggest mistakes was during the lockdowns not having kirtan, because the kirtan is the only solution for Kali Yuga. Otherwise, the demoniac influence of Kali Yuga will gobble us up. So that's the important.
I was lucky in the pandemics because I ended up in Radades in Belgium. So, but here in Switzerland, they forbade singing. So you were not allowed.
They what?
They forbade singing anywhere. So in the temple, you were not allowed to sing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for a few months. I don't know if it was 6 months or 1 year, and that was like for me terrible. I was not there. I came back when they lifted this prohibition. When I came, they could sing, but yeah, I don't know how.
Do you really believe that that's the reason? Do you really believe that there's not something behind this whole thing that is run by the Rakshasas? To stop kirtan, to stop Harinama? Come on, surely. And in Hawaii also. In Hawaii, my best friend Kusha was running the temple, and she was also faced with the same thing, a $5,000 fine or something if more than 5 people came in and they had to have a mask on and this on and all, yeah. It wasn't so prevalent in the red states, the states like Texas or Florida or even where I am. But in Hawaii and California, yeah, that was what happened. And but in a lot of places, they had protests out on the street and kirtans were held. I don't know if you heard about New Zealand, but Sitapati, who is, oh no, my gosh, he's a hero. Sitapati, and he's a youngster. He's not my age. He's, I think, in his late 30s or something. And they've had very bad lockdowns in Australia and New Zealand.
Oh yeah,
and Sitapati, he led a 21 days kirtan. Oh, Tulsi Gabbard just popped up on my screen. They are rigging the system. Hey, that's cool. She just approved of what I was saying. Tulsi Gabbard is a devotee. I don't know if you know that.
Oh yes,
Tulsi Gabbard. She ran for president. Anyway, something just a pop-up just came that they're rigging the system. Yeah, that's exactly right. But Sitapati in New Zealand, he's now doing a podcast every day with the Gita, and there was a very, very intense, it could have turned to violence type situation, and he led kirtans for 21 days in front of the Parliament building.
Wow.
And he was denounced by the leaders in New Zealand. He was denounced. He shouldn't have done it. But thousands of people joined in the kirtan. Thousands of people, they even donated food and money, and they set up a kitchen, and they fed prasadam to thousands of people. It went on for 21 days. And now there are still people every day who and distributed books, Gitas. And so, there's a lot to be said for getting the word out. And I think the most important thing that you have to understand is that we are, this is actually a war between good and evil. And what's interesting is I'm not the only one saying this. Prabhupada's not the only one saying this. I just saw yesterday online. It's the first time I'd ever seen online. There's a German guy named Bernhard Gunther who was doing a book review of another person in Germany. It was in English, of course. And it was all about how the spiritual significance of what is going on in the world right now. There is a great significance. From our perspective, it is a partial dissolution. Yeah. Before the golden age. It's like we're in we're going through a tunnel and there's a lot of dark stuff happening, but the light at the end of the tunnel is the golden age. Very positive, not I think I need some water.
Yeah. Water if you need. Thank you again for sharing. I just wanted to say just one thing, because you said about feminism. So what do they mean about feminism in Islam?
Yeah, what do they mean anyway?
I know that feminism is a fight of women for their rights, like a right to vote or a right to have legal stuff. And as a lawyer, I see it legally, but there's also various feministic philosophies and so on. But generally how I see it is that whenever ladies want to, lead kirtans or preach or give lectures, and if they talk about it as that they think that they have a right to it, then sometimes they are labeled as feminists because of that. But I don't know.
So that means Prabhupada's a feminist then?
Yeah, maybe.
What does that mean? I don't understand. He's the one that told us to do this. So does that make him a feminist leader or something?
Yeah. Everything that, I don't know why some people say it. I find it funny because actually I studied women's studies and I learned about feminism. So, and also I don't see it as very negative stuff. It's just something that historically happened because women were abused and oppressed. So they had to do something about it. Yeah. So, and then, we can have the whole discussion about it, how if men were real protectors, then there would be no need for these things because, a protector who loves and who nurtures and so on. So yeah, it's always like, Kali Yuga, the age of disagreement. So I guess that just,
yes.
So in that sense.
I know, but the sad thing is it causes so much friction, so much loss of time. It's very unfortunate, but it is there. In the very beginning, like, for example, here's another example. The day that Srila Prabhupada took the name Srila Prabhupada, that happened in Boston in 1968. Okay. Before that, he was called Swamiji. Yeah. And then one day, my husband was studying Sanskrit and Bengali because he was doing the transliteration for Chaitanya Charitamrita by then. And so one day he asked Prabhupada, can I call Govinda Dasi? Can I call her Govindaji? And, just because he was learning about suffixes and prefixes in the language. So he asked that question. And Prabhupada said, no, G is a very third-class form of address. And so I said, well, then why are we calling you Swamiji? If that's true, why are we calling you that? And he said, not very important. But it is important to us. And so Gorsinder and I both said, what can we call you that's more respectful? We would like to have a first-class form of address, not third class. And so he thought for a minute. He was very, very humble. Let's just say so humble. He was not interested in tacking big names or anything on his title or anything. But we did press him and say, well, please let us know, just because we would like to call you some. So he thought for 3 minutes, and he said, Guru Maharaj or Guru Dev or Srila Prabhupada. And he was looking up at the painting of Srila Prabhupada on his wall that Chaudhrani had done. And so I said, well, that's 3. Can we pick one that just, one that's your favorite? And he said, Srila Prabhupada is nice. And so I said, okay, from today, we will call you Srila Prabhupada. You will be known as Srila Prabhupada. And then we let all the devotees know. But right after that, Prabhupada said what it means. He gave the meaning of Srila Prabhupada. What does it mean? Do you know what it means? It means the lotus feet, the great, that all the Prabhus has taken shelter of. Prabhu, Pad. So all of the devotees, the Prabhus, have taken shelter of the Prabhupada. I am the Prabhupada, and you are all the Prabhus who have taken shelter of the Prabhupada. So from now on, you call one another Prabhu, and I am the Prabhupada. It's sort of like like it was our connection to him. That's what it meant. So from that day on, I called my husband Gorsinder Prabhu. He called me Govinda Dasi Prabhu. Right? You will see letters Prabhu had his written. Dear Malati Prabhu, dear Hemavati Prabhu, dear Shamsundar Prabhu. You see, the meaning was not a gender thing. They have made it a gender thing. Prabhupada knew Sanskrit, he knew Bengali, he knew Hindi, and he knew English. So I think he knew what it meant. I'm pretty sure.
I agree.
But his idea was that way we will respect one another, because he could foresee what was going to happen. This is Kali Yuga, like he said. So he always was trying to find us ways to work together. So from that time on, that was the mood that we had. But some years later, and I wasn't around, so I don't really know how it happened, suddenly it became Mataji. Well, that's fine. I don't care. Like my girlfriend Kusha says, I don't care what you call me as long as you call me for prasadam. But the point is, it became weaponized.
Yep.
And this is the problem. It became weaponized. It became demeaning in some cases. I'm not saying in all cases. And also, what I find most strange is that there will be leaders who would say that never happened, but there's evidence, written evidence that it happened. There's recorded evidence that it happened. So a lot of these kind of things happened. It may be that in India, it has a gender significance. I really don't know. But I think if you check, you'll find that almost all old Prabhupada disciples call one another Prabhu. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's why. That's what he told us to do. And it's not, I'm not saying that this is particularly significant, but it's indicative of changes. And when you have little changes, they add up. Each change makes something else. And then pretty soon you have a whole new mood, a whole new mission. And a lot of the senior disciples feel like there's a lot has been lost. And it is our duty to try. Whether you want to follow it or not is your business. That's a separate issue. But whether you want to follow any of the original teachings is a separate issue. But what we think is that we should not change what Prabhupada has given. That's how most old disciples think. And some people just don't even know that that there are changes.
Mm.
Another example is the second initiation.
Mhm.
If I could reach it, I would, but I can't reach it, so I have to wait till it rings 4 times. Another example is the second initiation for women. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. I don't know what you're aware of, but I know about this since I was there.
Okay.
And based on some erroneous information, some leaders have quit giving second initiation to women, or a complete second initiation to women. But since Jadharani and Annapurna and myself were all there for the first, I don't want to say first, second initiation, for the original initiation in Boston, I'm aware that Prabhupada intended for that to happen. This was that was part of his format. Why? Because he was going to introduce deity worship. And in order to introduce deity worship, he needed to have lots of Brahmin initiates, right?
Yeah.
And so that was what was coming next. Deity worship had not been instituted as of yet. Now, it is a fact that I was not aware that he was planning to do it the next evening. That is a fact. And so I was sulky. That is also true. But my girlfriend Kusha asked Gorsinder about this not so long ago, since it's become such a issue shrouded in all kinds of weird political machinations. What happened? And Gorsinder said, well, she was in the kitchen. She didn't know. I was in the kitchen. I was cooking his dinner, so I didn't know the plans. So based on that, I didn't know that there was, and Jadharani, I talked to her also. Jadharani and Annapurna and I were all initiated at the same time, second initiation. And that was just normal. It was just accepted. But now it has become one of those issues of contention or issues of question. Why not just keep it the way Prabhupada arranged it? I don't know if you know about this.
No, I don't.
HUD?
No, I don't know about this. That women
Well,
cannot.
you should check into it. Do your research. It's a big
Okay.
issue. It's a very big. This is much more important and much more significant than some of the other things, the minor things. It's important because it essentially it changes Prabhupada's arrangement or his examples. What's the right word here we're looking for? His plans, his instructions, his format. That's the right word. His format for ISKCON, that's the right word, was to have initiated boys and girls. And look what eventually happened. The girls took care of the deities. They did the sewing, the cooking, the guys went out and got the permits for the Ratha Yatras, because males can make things happen. They can get things done a lot more easily than a lot of ladies. Maybe that's not true of you, but I think it's generally true of me. And so what Prabhupada arranged was a perfect arrangement. He had the ladies taking care of the deities. He had them making sure the children were taken care of. And he also had some of them, depending on their expertise, were doing different things. I know Malati and Yamuna in India, they did wonderful things. They traveled all over. They ordered deities. He had a whole network. Prabhupada had a whole network. And by working together, we accomplished a huge amount. But if you start pulling apart and fighting, what do you accomplish? Not much.
The only thing I did hear about is, but that's very rare, but I did hear, is that sometimes a lady is not allowed to get initiated, not even the first initiation, if she's not married. And I find that very strange.
Oh, I never heard that. That's not true. That's just not true. Annapurna wasn't married.
Yeah.
Annapurna was a British girl.
Yeah. I know.
Many devotees weren't
Yeah, yeah.
married. Many.
I'm not. I know that's true, but I'm just saying that there are some devotees whose spiritual masters don't give them initiation until they are married. So, I mean, I'm gonna cut this part out because I don't know. I'll ask Radha Prabhu. But anyway, I don't want to say something that someone will. But that's what I heard here in Switzerland. That's some ladies, they cannot get initiated until they get married, which I find very weird. And also, I mean, once this is what my friend now
What
she.
if they don't get married? What if they die tomorrow? What if they get hit by
I
a
know.
car?
My,
No, seriously, we just had a young man, 26 years old,
yeah,
who was just killed in a car accident last week or so.
yeah.
He didn't know he was going to die. I mean, he was initiated and he was a devotee and he was doing nice service, but like that. So Prabhupada's mood was, you don't have much time. You don't know how long you're going to be here. This is the age of Kali. Anything can happen. Do it immediately. That was his mood about everything. I just read something in my notebooks about how he wanted his books printed. He's complaining how they're taking too long to edit. They're just get them printed. We don't have much time. Prabhupada's whole mood was, and you know, it's a kind of maya that we have, that we think we have so much time. It's a kind of an illusion that we have, especially when we're young. We really have it then. And even when we're older, we don't know. So anyway, that's troubling. And sorry, I think I don't want to get into calling names or anything like that. I'm really not on that kind of, but I think it's very important for these young men who are going to take the roles of gurus, of teachers, and the responsibility of students, that to try as far as possible to do it like Prabhupada did it, to follow his format. Because that way, if they follow his format, they won't be held responsible for failures. If they change things, you will be held responsible for the changes that you make. That's the problem. I mean, it's like if you work at an office and you have a boss, a big company. If you change what the company, the head guy wants to do, you will probably get fired, you know, right? You're required to, whether you agree with it or not, that doesn't matter. You got a job there and you have to respect the head of the company, and they're, even if their decisions, even if you think they're wrong, you have to respect them. You have to go along with them, or else you take the reaction.
I agree with that. I just wanted to say that this girl, my friend, she said to me like, "Oh, I don't know if I can get initiated because I'm not married," because she heard that from God sisters and God brothers. And then I pushed her to ask her Guru Maharaj, like, "Okay, but you should ask him like what he thinks about these things." And I pushed and she came and he said it's nonsense. Thank God that like it's people's karma, whether they'll get married or not. It has nothing to do with spiritual life.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, it would make. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So that's ridiculous. Yeah.
So,
I mean, we just have to follow as it is. Prabhupada wrote his Gita as it is. We have to realize that, like Prabhupada used to say, Krishna told me to come to this material world. I didn't want to come. It's such a nasty place. But he said, you just go there and write some books and then come back. No problem. So I came to write these books. So now he's written the books. Now we just have to follow. We don't have the vision that he has. We simply don't. None of us can see into the future as like he could. None of us can see into the people's hearts like he could. He could read everything about your past life, your heart, what you're thinking. I mean, sometimes that could get really embarrassing, if somebody can read everything you're thinking. But it's the way it is. And so we have to I think there really wouldn't be any problems at all if we simply followed examples that he set.
I agree. Thank you very much. And thank you for answering all the questions. And we're happy that you wrote this book and that we invite all the devotees to read it. And we are eagerly awaiting other parts, like volume 2 and 3. So really thank you. And thank you for the whole conversation and for sharing like this. I think it's important.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for finding the time. So,
the books are in England now. They have arrived in England. They were being sold in India where they were printed. But now a shipment has arrived in America and in England, and I think some are on the way to Australia or New Zealand, I believe. So yeah, because I got a letter from somebody in New Zealand who had gotten them. So I don't know if they're selling them at the Manor. I have no idea, but they are available now in Europe if anyone's interested. And they're very inexpensive too. They're only $10. They're $10 each because you just want to pay the printer. It's more of a preaching thing. And I think they're $5 with a case, $5 each for a case. Like if you get a box. And then that way people can sell them in their stores, their bookstores. You probably have stores there, don't you, in Switzerland?
Yeah, we have a temple shop. A temple shop.
Yeah, something. Yeah, so I don't know if Belgium has them yet. I haven't been in touch with Belgium, but I do know that they are in UK. Okay. So that's cheaper. So tell me about your Alps retreat.
So it's going to be from I told you he's going to be from 16 to 22nd of July. And Kosarupa Prabhu will come with Badaharidas Prabhu as guests, and then Krishna.
Oh, Badahar. Yeah, they were telling me about it. Badahar, Kosha's my good friend, so she was telling me about it.
And then Krishna Kshetra Maharaj will come, Sachinandana Swami, and Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Swami. I like him a lot. He's great with his lectures and everything. So it's in the mountains, in the central Switzerland. It's really nice for meditation, and the air is very clean, and it's summer, and you can see the peaks, snowy peaks of the mountains. Even though it's summer, there's still snow.
Like Heidi, it's like a walking into the book of Heidi.
Yeah, it is. And there will be what did he say? I don't know what's the topic, I forgot, but there is always a topic of the retreat, and then this Maharajas, they give lectures and we sing kirtans, and you're most welcome if you want to come, if you have the time. It would be nice to have you. You can ask Kosarupa Prabhu about it also, and come with them.
Yes,
if it's possible. We have it every year.
Well, I have a lot of airline miles because I haven't traveled in the last few years. And so I have on my credit card so many. I'm thinking, well, I'd like to use these airline miles before the airlines go out of business or something.
Yeah.
It's like they give you mileage, as you know. You probably know. So how long did you raised in Croatia? Were you raised in Croatia?
Yes, in the capital, Zagreb. And in 2014, I came to Switzerland. And my husband, he got a job here, so I also came. And as I said, like I met the devotees in Croatia, but I was not so connected with the temple. But then when I came here, I was more engaged. Yeah, so that's how
Croatia was a part of Yugoslavia or near Yugoslavia?
Yes, it was part. I was born in Yugoslavia in the 80s, and then in the 90s there was war.
Huge war. I remember that. I was seeing at that time the visions of the Mother Mary appearing in Yugoslavia. I was aware of that. One of my friends was she wanted to go to Medjugorje. Is that how you pronounce it? Medjugorje?
Yeah,
She
Medjugorje.
was her big desire. How do you say it?
Medjugorje. Medjug.
Medjugorje.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult.
Medjugorje?
Yeah,
Medjugorje?
yeah,
Yeah, Medjugorje. Yeah, she had a book on it, and it was a very fascinating. And I thought it was very beautiful the way she was telling people, repent and pray, repent and pray. There's some dark times coming.
yeah.
know.
There's still dark times, unfortunately. Even though the war is over, it's not there. I mean, I don't think that the situation is better. People are just getting poorer and poorer, and the government is just stealing the money. So, like, nothing to laugh about, but it's my reaction.
Message also.
Yeah, and everything is corrupt. That's why I didn't like to work in my profession very much there. So Switzerland is different. I mean, here it has better karma, even though it's the material world. They like rules and regulations. So basically, you know what to expect here because everyone follows rules. So in that sense, it's easier, and economically, it's easier. So he's my husband who's checking on me. Yeah. So yeah. So basically, I mean, we are happy that we are here because I don't know if we would be able to live normally in Croatia. Just not.
There are many Croatian devotees who fled.
Yeah, yeah. And my family is mixed, like Serbs, Croats, Slovenians, and Bosnians, and they were all in war. So for my family, it was not very nice. Because if you're not pure in something, then you're automatically the enemy. So yeah.
If you're not what?
Pure, like pure Croat, pure Serb, and if you are from the
Okay. Oh, they did it. Well, that's what they're doing now in America too.
yeah,
They're doing similar things. This is worldwide. It's a very sad time that yeah, Prabhupada told us a lot about what was going to happen.
yeah,
And he warned us. And Harinam is the only solution that can really ward it off.
yeah.
And I mean, what about look at the war over in the Ukraine? It's
Yeah.
like so many devotees have fled there, haven't they?
Yeah.
Kosha told me that many devotees have left Ukraine and they're coming to a lot of the temples in Europe.
Yes. My, Niranjana Swami, he's my spiritual master, and he's, I think, GBC of Ukraine. So I helped them a little bit, like legally, because I was doing a research on how actually you can come to different countries of Europe. So
Right.
a lot of devotees, they fled to different countries here. There are a lot of them here in Switzerland, which is good for them that they are here. And in every country there is a Ukrainian devotee there. And I like Ukrainian devotees because they are very loving and very soft. So they bring a nice atmosphere wherever they come. At least for me, I don't know. I feel like that for them. So, but I'm sad because they suffer. I was actually initiated in Ukraine, so I was there. But before,
you were initiated, okay? Oh, before it became the war.
yes,
Before it had the war.
in 2018, I was there. But it's funny because I was studying in Geneva this international humanitarian law and human rights, and our case law, I mean our cases, were from Crimea, like when Russia took Crimea. That was in 2014. So I was studying about it, and yeah, this world is totally crazy. And like the Geneva people there, the lawyers, they have PhDs and they're experts in the war of Yugoslavia. And I was like, oh my God, so there was a war in my country, and then these people who never lived in my country or anything, and they're foreigners, they became experts on something that was happening in my home in a way. So this whole world is totally crazy. And now they're earning money based on other people's suffering. So that's why I quit law, because it was just too much for me.
They weren't helping the people. They weren't helping.
No, they usually they sit in their fancy offices in these international organizations, and then they tell other people how to live in their own countries, and they don't know anything about those countries. I mean, I'm not saying that they're all bad, but just the whole principle is, it makes no sense. It's like I don't know.
It's all about money.
Yeah, I found it very
Oh, that's interesting.
hypocritical. Yeah, hypocritical hypocrisy. So. So I'm very happy that I don't do law, because I think law is made for like, hospitals, courtrooms. They are made for karma, fulfillment of that.
Karma.
Yeah, usually. So it's not a good atmosphere to be in. Yeah.
No, it's not. That's not. But yet you're very good at it, so you might have to use that talent. So it's a good analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah. There have been some Ukrainian devotees who have arrived in America also.
Yeah.
And they come with nothing. And I saw one devotee helping them get a car, somebody else helping them get a house, some place to stay. And so the refugees are coming all over.
Yeah. Who knows when it will end? So we'll see. Yeah. Yeah. I thank you very much for the whole conversation, and it was very nice
You're
to meet
tired. You need to take rest.
you. I will go. I'm a little bit hot. I don't know why here, but everything is closed. Yeah. So thank you again for everything, and who knows? Maybe we'll meet in person one day. In the future.
Yeah, maybe I'll end up coming to the ALP program.
Yeah,
if you let me know about
that would
it.
be so nice. Please, if you are coming, let me know. Yeah, very happy to welcome you.
Thank you so much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. And best of luck with your life there in Switzerland.
Thank you. And with everything. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories. Good night. Haribol.